What would you say if a cop leaned into your window and asked, "Where's the fire?" If you apologize, you may have just handed over the best evidence against you. One nervous sentence can turn a simple stop into a much bigger problem. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could save you from talking yourself into a ticket, a search, or worse. And tap like so you can find this fast when a real stop happens to you. That little question sounds harmless. It sounds like small talk. It sounds like the officer is joking with you. But your answer matters more than you think. Most people have no idea that "Where's the fire" is often a setup. It invites you to say, "Sorry, I was speeding," or "I'm late," or "I know, my bad." And once you say that, your own words start doing the officer's job for them. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and you see the same mistake over and over. Drivers feel pressure. Drivers want to seem nice. Drivers start explaining, then the stop gets longer, the questions get deeper, and the officer starts fishing for more. Let me show you exactly how to shut that down without being rude, without acting weird, and without making your situation worse. You need the first sentence, the follow-up question, the search refusal, and the calm way to handle extra commands. Now let's talk about why this goes wrong so fast for you. When blue lights hit, your brain wants relief. You want the tension gone. So you try to smooth it over, you smile, you apologize, you start talking. That feels smart in the moment. But here's the reality. The officer is not grading you on politeness. The officer is collecting facts. Every answer you give can lock you into a story. If you say you were rushing to work, you just admitted speed. If you say you didn't see the sign, you just admitted bad driving. If you say you only had 2 beers, you just opened a whole new lane of questions. Your mouth becomes the evidence file. Former police officers have confirmed this works because people talk when they're nervous. So your goal is simple. You comply with basic legal commands, but you stop feeding the stop. You do not argue, you do not lie, you do not confess just to sound nice. The first thing you do is replace the apology with one calm line. When the officer says, "Where's the fire?" or "Do you know why I stopped you?" you do not explain. You do not guess. You do not confess. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I'll provide my license, registration, and insurance, but I'm not answering questions." Word for word. Memorize that line. That sentence works because it does 2 things at once. You show basic cooperation by giving the required documents, but you also stop the interview before it starts. You are not being hostile. You are not refusing the whole stop. You are only refusing to build the case with your own mouth. That matters because traffic stops feel casual, but your words still count. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Salinas versus Texas, the court basically showed why you should clearly say you are using your right to stay quiet instead of just hoping silence protects you. Plain English? If you want silence to help you, make it clear. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I'm sorry, I was probably going a little fast." Then that apology becomes an admission the officer can remember, write down, and repeat later. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I'll provide my license, registration, and insurance, but I'm not answering questions." Then the officer gets your documents, but not your confession. You also protect yourself from the second trap. Once you apologize, officers often keep you talking. Why were you in such a hurry? Have you had anything to drink? Where are you coming from? It snowballs fast. Your first answer makes the next 5 questions easier, but when you use that line, you force the stop back toward its normal lane, ticket or warning, then done. Here's the reality. A lot of people think silence makes you look guilty. No. Rambling makes you vulnerable. Calm silence makes you disciplined. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it keeps your words clean. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when nerves hit. You cannot unsay a confession. You cannot pull an apology back out of the officer's notebook, but you can prevent it from getting there in the first place. And one more thing for you. Never try to be cute. Never say, "I know my rights," with an attitude. Never lecture. Just be calm. Keep your hands visible. Give your documents. Use the line. And stop talking. This is 100% legal. You are allowed to be polite and quiet at the same time. Think you could stop yourself from apologizing in that moment? Tell me yes or no in the comments because most drivers fail right there. Now let's move to the next move because this is where your stop either ends or drags on. After the officer checks your documents, maybe writes the ticket, maybe gives a warning, you will often hear more questions. "You mind hanging tight? Where are you headed? Anything illegal in the car?" Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A traffic stop has a job. The officer handles the reason for the stop. Once that job is done, the officer does not get extra time just to go fishing unless there is a real legal reason. So you need one clean question ready. You look at the officer and say this: "Officer, is this stop over or am I free to leave?" Those exact words. That question matters because it forces clarity. It makes the officer choose. Either you are still legally detained or you are free to go. There is no fuzzy middle where you just hang around answering random questions because it feels awkward to leave. In Rodriguez versus United States, the Supreme Court said police cannot stretch a stop longer than needed for the traffic mission just to do unrelated investigating without proper cause. Plain English, they cannot turn your 10-minute speeding stop into a roadside fishing trip just because they feel like it. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, no problem, and keep chatting after the ticket is done. Then the stop gets longer, the questions get stranger, and the officer starts looking for a reason to search. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, is this stop over or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to either let them go or clearly say they are still detained. Watch what happens when you use that line the right way. The whole mood changes. The stop stops feeling casual for them. Now it becomes clear and on the record. If the officer says you are free to go, you leave. Quietly. No victory speech. No extra questions. If the officer says you are still detained, then you know this is serious and you stop volunteering even harder. You should also know what not to say. Do not ask, why am I in trouble? Do not say, I didn't do anything. Do not say, am I under arrest, too early and too often. That can sound dramatic. Your line is better because it is simple and direct. It is not emotional. It is not hostile. It just asks for the legal status of the stop. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it removes the social pressure game. You are no longer guessing. You are making them say it. If you remember nothing else from this part, remember this. Once the ticket business is done, your job is not to keep proving you are nice. Your job is to find out whether you can leave. That one question can save you from 10 extra minutes of risk. The third move is the line that shuts down the casual search request. This happens all the time. The officer smiles and says, you don't mind if I take a quick look, right? Or mind if I check your car? Or if you've got nothing to hide, we're good, right? That is pressure. That is not a favor to you. That is a request for permission, and your answer needs to be short. Here's exactly what you say. I do not consent to any searches, word for word. Memorize that line too. Do not add jokes. Do not add speeches. Do not say, I guess that's fine if you have to. Do not say, only if you're fast. Those little soft yeses are still yeses. In Schneckloth for Bustamante, the Supreme Court made clear that consent searches can count as valid, even when officers do not warn you that you could refuse. Plain English. If you say yes, even casually, the search may stand. That is why your no has to be clear. Bad way. Most drivers say, I guess that's okay. I have nothing to hide. Then the officer has consent, and your own words help justify the search. Good way. Smart drivers say, I do not consent to any searches. Then they keep their hands still, stay calm, and make the officer rely on actual legal grounds instead of social pressure. This is where people get manipulated. The officer may act offended. The officer may say, why not? The officer may say, only guilty people say no. Ignore that bait. Your refusal is not evidence of guilt. Your refusal is you keeping your rights. This is 100% legal. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because consent destroys a lot of your later arguments. Once you say yes, your lawyer has less room to fight. Watch what happens when drivers fold here. A stop that started with speed turns into questions about bags, boxes, old receipts, cash, pills, tools, or anything else sitting in plain view once the search starts. Even innocent stuff can create more trouble. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it preserves the issue. If the officer searches anyway, your refusal still matters later. If you consent, you gave that away. And keep this part simple for yourself. Refusing consent does not mean resisting. If the officer searches anyway, do not physically interfere. Do not reach. Do not argue at full volume. Just repeat your line once if needed. I do not consent to any searches. Then stay still. You are protecting your case, not winning a roadside debate. Most viewers already clicked away. If you're still here, you're the one who won't panic when blue lights hit. Drop a comment saying I'm still here because the next part makes all of this work together. Now let's cover the moment that scares drivers the most. The officer says, step out of the car. Your heart jumps. You think that means you already lost. Not always. Listen closely because this is critical. In Pennsylvania v. Mims, the Supreme Court said officers can generally order a driver out during a lawful stop. Plain English? If the stop itself is valid, you usually do have to step out when told. So do not fight that command. But stepping out does not mean you start chatting. It does not mean you agree to a search. It does not mean you stop having rights. Your line here needs to be calm and short. You say, I will comply with lawful orders, but I'm not answering questions. That sentence keeps you safe in two ways. First, you are not resisting a command that can lawfully be given. Second, you are not giving the officer a fresh stream of words while you are nervous outside the car. Bad way. Most drivers say, why do I have to get out? And then start arguing on the roadside. Then tension rises. The officer gets louder and your stop gets more dangerous. Good way. Smart drivers say, I will comply with lawful orders, but I'm not answering questions. Then they step out calmly and avoid feeding the stop. This is where your body language matters for you. Move slowly. Tell the officer before you move your hands. Do not reach fast. Do not turn this into a pride contest. If you need to unbuckle, say that. If you need to grab the door handle, say that. Your goal is boring. Boring is good. Boring gets you home. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the worst outcomes often start when a driver treats every command like a personal insult. Don't do that. You can also pair this with your search refusal if needed. If the officer says, "Step out and let me check the car," you say, "I will step out, but I do not consent to any searches." That is clear. That is calm. That protects you. And if the officer keeps pushing with questions, you go back to the same rule. No explanations, no arguing, no roadside storytelling. Now let me pull the legal part together for you in plain English. Rodriguez versus United States says a traffic stop cannot be stretched longer than needed just to investigate other stuff without a real reason. That is why your question, "Is this stop over or am I free to leave?" matters so much. It forces the timeline into the open. Schneckloth vs. Bustamante says consent searches can still count even if the officer never told you that you could refuse. That is why your line, "I do not consent to any searches," is so important. If you casually say yes, you may lose a big legal fight later. Pennsylvania vs. Mims says officers can usually order you out of the car during a lawful traffic stop. That is why you comply with that command, but keep your mouth closed. And Salinas vs. Texas is your reminder that if you want silence to protect you, you should make it clear instead of hoping your quiet alone does the job. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. So your play is simple. Comply with basic lawful commands. Do not confess. Ask if the stop is over. Refuse consent clearly. Keep your words clean. Let me show you exactly how this plays out for you in real life. You are driving home. You see lights. You pull over safely. The officer walks up and says, "Where's the fire? Wrong way first." You laugh nervously and say, "Sorry, officer, I'm late for work, and I know I was speeding." Now the officer has your admission. He takes your documents, comes back, and instead of ending it, he asks where you are coming from and whether you have anything illegal in the car. You keep chatting because you want to seem cooperative. Then he asks to search. You say, sure, I don't have anything to hide." Now your stop just got way more dangerous, and you did most of the damage yourself. Now the right way. You pull over, hands visible, window down enough to talk. The officer says, "Where's the fire?" You say, "Officer, I'll provide my license, registration, and insurance, but I'm not answering questions." He takes the documents, he comes back later and tries again with small talk. You stay calm. If the ticket or warning seems done, you ask, "Officer, is this stop over or am I free to leave?" If he says you are free to go, you leave. If he asks to search, you say, "I do not consent to any searches." If he orders you out, you say, "I will comply with lawful orders, but I'm not answering questions." Then you step out slowly. That is it. No panic, no speech, no apology tour. Watch what happens in that version. You give the officer less to work with. You do not help build suspicion. You do not volunteer a confession. You do not grant consent just because the request sounds casual. Your whole goal is to get through the stop without becoming the star witness against yourself. That is how smart drivers protect themselves. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Subscribe right now because that one gets drivers to panic fast, and you need the exact line before it happens to you. So lock these points into your head. When you hear "Where's the fire?" do not apologize and do not explain. Give your documents and stop the interview with one calm sentence. When the traffic business is done, ask if the stop is over or if you are free to leave. If they ask to search, refuse clearly and politely. If they order you out, comply, but keep your mouth closed. You do not need to be rude. You do not need to be scared. You need to be clear. That is how you protect your rights when pressure hits. Hit subscribe so you catch the next video on the weed smell claim. Smash that like button if this just changed how you'll handle your next traffic stop. And drop a comment telling me which line you'll memorize first. Stay calm, stay smart, and stay safe out there.